You have the talent. Whether you have the killer instinct is the big question.
Playing the two sides of Cruella, Estella and Cruella, it's been really interesting. It's also been interesting to kind of gauge the tone and how different they are. It's one thing to read it on the page, but it's another to really try to do it day in and day out. How much of Cruella is in Estella and how much of Estella is in Cruella. But I think it's kind of fantastic because it's the personification of those two sides of her hair. You know, there's kind of like the dark and the light. But one of the great things I think about the way that Estella, the original Cruella, is written is that she's not, if she's the white, she's not like this pure, sweet, kind of unattainably, perfect creature. She's full of vim and vigor, and she's feisty and smart and is a con artist. So she definitely has a lot of personality, which I love.
What drives her is not wanting ever to come second and not wanting ever to share the limelight with anybody else. So what drives her is her narcissistic and balefully difficult personality. What drives her is her personality disorder, essentially. She's not well. I mean, she's really, really not well. So, and that energy that comes from her, I mean, she's obviously a very, very, very creative woman and brilliant. She's a brilliant designer. But then this other person comes along who's better and modern and hip and chic and young and everything she can't bear.
We first meet Anita at one of the Baroness's balls, and she's a reporter. She's a sort of young up-and-comer. She's very ambitious. She's also pretty smart, and she kind of falls in between the two ladies. You've got the Baroness, who is kind of really calculated and really, I mean, I think what's lovely is that all the women are very intelligent in this, but she's very, she's kind of like, I guess, the baddie. And then you have Estella, who also kind of has this slightly dark side. And I think Anita falls right in between, where she kind of understands them both, but isn't the same as either of them.
John the Valet is a mysterious character because he's part of the Baroness's entourage. He's with her often at the most important moments of the movie. And you're never really quite sure, I think, who he is or what his agenda is, because essentially he's quite a silent character. But there's a point in the movie where there's a twist and you discover something very interesting about him. And I think it was that made me want to play him, because I felt like the audience were being led down a certain path of expectation of that character that's then undermined and slightly changed, and he ends up being not what you think he is.
There's power in numbers, so the young Horace and young Jasper were probably somewhat self-sufficient, but I think Estella is the real creative genius in that group. They're really more the sweat equity. She's the brain behind the operation. So when she joins their group and it becomes a trio, that's when they kind of find their outwitting of everyone, and they kind of come up together in the world of seedy crime. But I think the way the dynamic changes is when you see Estella start to change without giving anything away. As Estella starts to change, the friendship starts to change, and suddenly Horace and Jasper aren't sure if they like where the friendship is headed. It's like they're more employees rather than friends.
Craig, the director, and I had a conversation actually at the beginning about why Artie's relationship to Cruella was specific, in the sense that creative people can be temperamental, and she has her fair share of mood swings because she's so filled with passion and life that's sometimes something that Jasper and Horace have a harder time understanding as to why. And I think there's also some statement in there about a woman being the boss over these two men and how comfortable they are with that. But I think my character Artie really understands where that is coming from, because when you have all these ideas bursting to get out and they can't, sometimes it comes out in the wrong avenue with a bit of attitude. But ultimately she's just desperate to show the world who she is.
I think what's brilliant about it is that you think you know the Cruella de Vil story because we've had a couple of movies and we had the I think it was 1961, the original. So I think people's idea of Cruella is that she is this sort of really mean, unhinged woman and she treats animals poorly and things like that. But I think what they're gonna get from this that they maybe didn't expect was seeing how she came to be and seeing like the human side of her. I think the movie is really good at showing like a fully fleshed out human being rather than just somewhat a caricature that we've seen in previous iterations.
What I think Craig is really doing with this is something very fast-paced, very fun, filled with music, you know, filled with great dogs that are very expressive in a way that is just, I love watching. And yeah, I just hope it's a real blast for people.
Oh, wonderful actors. There's so many fans. I mean, Joel Fry, Paul Walter Hauser, Mark Strong, every single part is so beautifully played. I mean, I can't tell you how much fun we've had when someone just comes on and gives of their is a turn, you know, and is just brilliant and funny, terribly funny. So he's cast it wonderfully well, as well. But it is I mean, the two leads are women who are working and who are adversaries in their work, and you don't see that very often.
I guess you must hate her. She has made it me or her, and I choose me.
Don't worry, there's lots more bad things coming.
Perhaps.